of Monsters and Men there with a little talk. It's 5 minutes past 8. Drum roll. That's as good as drum roll. Not really. I should have looked for it. We probably do actually have a sound effect that I probably could have played there instead of.
That's no why we're sports.
No, I probably I've had 6 weeks to organise an intro for our comeback, and that's the best I could come up with. Disappointing, but welcome back, of course, to Moreton Bay's Man of Sport, Peter Swampy Marsh.
Yes, good morning, Matty. Good to be back in the chair, and hello to all SportsFeva listeners out there. Great to be back for what's, I'm sure, going to be another very, very busy year in sport in the region.
Mate, we missed, plenty happened, of course, while we had about 5 weeks off SportsFeva, maybe even 6. Plenty, of course, we've seen plenty of cricket happening and whatnot. A lot of people kind of pointed the finger at us, said we waited to come back from SportsFeva until all those tricky Russian tennis names finished after the Australian Open. And, look, I'll be honest, it's probably not too far from the truth. There are some tongue twisters there, but great tennis again we've just seen.
Absolutely wonderful. I was very lucky enough to get out to the Brisbane International for both the men's and the women's final over the break, Matty, and just an incredible calibre of tennis talent that we're able to see over the summer here. We're very lucky to have the Australian Open as a marquee event in the year, and just a wonderful tournament this year across both the men's and the women's draw. I found myself actually watching a lot more of the women's draw, with a lot more intrigue there with of course the massive upset of Sloane Stephens over Serena Williams, the roller coaster ride that is always Sam Stosur over the summer, and of course 2 fantastic results in the doubles with Cassie DeLuca and Ash Barty from Ipswich making the final, and Yamila Gaidasova and Maddie Ebden taking out the mixed final, which was wonderful stuff for the Aussies.
And a real massive ball over that victory for those guys.
Unseeded and had never played together before. Maddie Ebden picked up the phone before the tournament. Gaidasova's normal partner couldn't play, and look, they rode that wave right the way through, and they were dominant in the final as well. They just did the business and took home the trophy. And DeLuca and Barty hadn't played that much before either as well.
And we're playing a dominant team.
Yeah, number one seeds of double specialists when both of those girls normally have singles commitments as well. So a real good effort there to make through to the final. And to tell you what, the more you see of Ash Barty, the more you think she's just going to be a superstar. She's got her head in the right spot. She's an absolute little fighter, and it won't be long till we're talking about her, into second and third rounds.
Hate to put pressure on, but she's got Grand Slam champ written all over her. Probably 4 years away yet, because she's only 16, just 16. So, but she expects big things from Ash Barty, and probably within the next 12 months, I'm probably getting a little bit late on the bandwagon. But Sloane Stephens, she is the next big thing in women's tennis.
Saw her at the Brisbane International, Matty, and she was just, again, don't want to put too much pressure, but she is, she's the next generation of American tennis, and they're very much looking for their next big star to hang their hat on, just like we are with the Roddicks and the Williams retirings out of both the men's and the women's. They're looking for that next generation, and Sloane Stephens definitely looks to be it.
Yeah, she is going to be huge. And just quickly before we wind up on the tennis, I've been watching tennis close enough to 25 years. We've seen some great men's eras. I don't know if we've seen a better one in my time watching tennis than what we've got now.
I'd go as far to say that this is possibly in sport at the moment, there is not a greater generation of talent. We see the likes of Tiger Woods in the golf, who is probably the best that's ever played, but there's not 3 other guys who could challenge for that title like there is in tennis. It is just extraordinary to have the likes of Federer, Nadal, Djokovic, and now Murray, who was that outsider for so long but has stepped up his game so impressively. I'm really privileged to see him play in Brisbane. They are just 4 of the greatest tennis players that have ever played the game, and just take it to such a level. And it's always a roll of the dice. They talk about the depth, but I tell you what, when you get 4 good players like that, who really needs that depth, they're a joy to watch operate through the early rounds, and it's always such a fascinating encounter when they get to the finals.
I don't think it's like they're just that good. It's just amazing, and I think it's really highlighted by a really good player, David Ferrer, who's number 5, so he's just outside those top 4. Can't beat those top 4, but so much better than everyone behind him.
Known as the Wall, because it's like literally playing against the wall. Everything comes back, but he just doesn't have the tools to defeat those top 4 guys. And I think what we'll see is guys like Tomic. We saw Wawrinka, of course, against Djokovic. They've got to develop these game styles that are just all risk and hopefully reward. And, you know, if they're going to win, they're going to do it swinging. And we saw the results of that in that first set against Djokovic. The Swiss, you know, landed so much, and it was such exciting tennis to watch, but it eventually petered out, and Djokovic was able to outlast him. So that's going to be the next sort of generation, the Tsongas, the Tomics. They're going to have to put it all on the line to try and beat these guys, and it's going to make for some hell of a tennis matches.
Yeah, no, it's a very exciting era in tennis, and very privileged to be witnessing it. We better play a song because we've got some local cricket. Talking about you listening to the first SportsFeva for 2013. It's bang on 8:15 here on SportsFeva, and time now to talk some local cricket. And joining us on the line from the Caboolture Snakes, he's a favourite of the show. Jason Boris joins us. Good morning to you, Jace.
Morning, guys. How's things?
Look, we're probably a fair bit drier than the poor old Grant Road sports fields are at the moment, Jason. Of course, the scheduled Saturday fixtures and one-day finals washed out this weekend, but the one-day finals, thankfully, all rescheduled for Sunday, and really worked in your favour a little bit.
I did, mate, yeah. Somehow the cat got out of the bag about my knee, but look, it's all good. I should be right for Saturday and Sunday, so... you know, I set myself a plan early in the year not to miss a game this year, and it's the first time in my career, really, that I haven't missed a game at this time of the season. So, really happy with that, and that, I suppose, the gods above gave me an extra week.
Had plenty of anticipation leading into these one-day finals too, Jason. Gympie, the real form team of the competition across both the one-day and the two-day, and a dream final for the one-day. I imagine the boys are pretty pumped leading into it.
Boys are pretty pumped. You know, we understand Gympie are the benchmark, which obviously has taken a little bit of pressure off us this year, sort of towards this part of the season. You know, we're coming in with some really good form under our belt. The slip-up against Gympie before Christmas wasn't obviously that good. It wasn't great because we had them on toast. You know, we were 1 for 80 chasing 160 and just had a bit of a bad afternoon. And then they did us a favour just after Christmas by losing to Noosa. So... We go in full of confidence. They had a good win the other week as well, but I think the way we're playing our cricket at the moment, we're just starting to peak at the right time, and teams will start worrying about us again now.
The cards really fell into Caboolture's favour just before Christmas in terms of the one-day finals and just after, but you guys certainly put yourselves in all the right positions to take advantage of that, and have been playing some really good one-day cricket in the lead-up. I imagine you must be pretty happy with that, given that rough start to the year.
I guess the thing that makes me the happiest and pleases me the most is it's other blokes that are standing up. Like, you know, Bannister's been fantastic this year. Parkinson's been good again. I mean, obviously Ando and I, we have to bowl well. That's our job, and we know that, you know, most times if we get it right, then we're not going to go for runs. But it's the support cast that I've been really impressed with this year. And once again, you know, Clayton Simpson, I keep mentioning him every year, but for me, he's the ultimate team player, and he just keeps batting time. He just keeps batting time, and Luke Schmeltzkopf is in some good form. Andy Shavlon's bowling well, and I just think that normally, you know, we name 2 or 3 players, but I can name 7 or 8 this year that have really stood up and done a great job for us.
Yeah, couldn't agree with you more there, Jason. Certainly very consistent performances right across the season from a lot of players. Now, speaking of Matt Anderson, heard of a little bit of concern over a head knock that he had a couple of weeks ago. Is he going to be right for Sunday? Because just as he's hit probably his best form of the season as well. He
did. He got the knock in the first week against Noosa because he's getting too old and the ball's a bit quick for him. But he's got a bit of a headache, and then, you know, it obviously didn't affect him too much because he took 8 wickets on day 2. So, you know, like I said, it was a fantastic win against Noosa, and I think for the third time that we've had one outright there, I've only taken 1 for the match. So there's been 2 occasions where we've won outright, and I've taken 2 out of 40 wickets. So it's massive that, you know, that these guys are doing the job, and Matthew Anderson, I think, is bowling the best he's bowled since he's been at the club.
Yeah, of course, it is the first grade we're talking about here, but wonderful success right across the club for Caboolture at the moment, featuring in these finals both in Division 2 and Division 3 as well. The Division 2 will be playing alongside you guys at home at Grant Road, and Division 3 travelling up to Caloundra to take on Taunton Noosa. But particularly Division 2, Jason, a really ding-dong battle, you could call it, a local derby against Burpengary. Are you expecting plenty of feeling amongst that clash for the Division 2 boys?
Oh, for sure, mate. Like, I think last time we played, we'd won a game early and we went down to the Burpengary and Maroochydore Caboolture game. The Burpengary second graders were giving us a bit of jip. So, they're very cocky and they're a good side, but we've got 3 grudge matches. Obviously, us, Gympie, Burpengary for second grade, and third grade play their big bogey and grudge team against Noosa, who are the high flyers of third grade. So, mate, I couldn't be happier. Like, overall in all competitions, all 5 teams are in the top 4. It's just the hard work they've put in. Cameron Garnham's got to get a special mention for what he's done for the club. He brings a policy and a philosophy that we just follow, and it's pretty easy for me to just follow, particularly in the lower grades. And they've stood up well this year. And
in that second division team as well, some really good form with Dan Williamson, Jacob Wilson, and Gus Alexander, all knocking centuries in recent weeks in the one inning. So should be very well prepared to go in there against Burpengary.
Definitely, mate. And young Jacob Wilson, who's got a couple of hundreds this year, including one for us in first grade, is knocking really hard on the door at the moment. There's a few blokes up in our grade that are looking over their shoulder, which is what you want. You want blokes below performing, and then it makes it harder for us. We don't just cruise through games. Guys really have to start to stand up, because you can't keep saying no to blokes who are scoring hundreds. And this kid can bat. He's a good one, and he's a Burpengary product. So even more spice in the game this weekend, because he'll be wanting to do well against his old club.
Well, that's what we like. We love grudge matches with plenty of spice. It makes for good radio and good reporting. So, best of luck, and it's great to see Caboolture cricket in such a good spot at the moment. Before we let you go, Jason, we know you're a huge St George Dragons fan. Any thoughts on how they'll go this year, mate?
Well, I've got a source quite close to me and who's quite close to a certain Will Chambers, and apparently Bellamy and Chambers are a done deal, and it's going to be announced just before they head to the UK. So
there you go.
The Dragons might be getting Steve Folkes in as a caretaker manager, which means Steve Price's time is limited, thank God, and hopefully Craig Bellamy will bring one of the big 3 with him.
Well, fingers crossed. We're happy to run with this as a scoop, and if you, we might have to get you a regular run every week as our rugby league scooper if this comes off. So we'll wait with bated breath there.
Thanks, guys.
Good on you, mate.
Always good having a chat, and appreciate all the support we get from you guys, and obviously, we'll be doing our best to win 3 trophies this weekend.
It's our pleasure, mate. We're right behind you.
Thanks,
Jason.
Yeah.
There you go. We got a rugby league scoop out of that.
Caboolture cricket star, rugby league scoop hound. Tell you what, Was might get a little bit irked at that.
Won't he?
Well, yeah. He might have to get him on with his own version to see.
Was might have to start doing the local cricket report for us.
There you go.
We might have to switch around. Well, big news there, but Caboolture cricket, and ever since Jason has joined the Snake setup, he spoke about Cameron Garnham coming in this year in this coaching role, and throwing out, of course, Cameron, another Tullawong product, of course, but Jason's just brought this real killer attitude to the Snakes, hasn't he?
They are the dominant team on the Sunshine Coast of the past probably 7 to 8 years, and that's not a objective in any way. The Snakes have won more titles than any other team. They are the hunted. They are the team that everyone wants to beat, and there's a very good reason for that. And they've, like you said, they've developed a real reputation for just being absolutely ruthless. They don't let too many teams go once they got them by the scruff of the neck. And look, they started the year a little bit wonky, and Gympie really seized that initiative. And they've come good, the Snakes, in the second half. They've found that 2-day form again, and moving into the one-day competition, left no questions that they were a threat again. And the cards all fell in their favour. The right teams lost and the right teams won in a pretty unlikely scenario to deliver them a one-day final. But the Snakes did all that they needed to do. They were dominant that week to get the maximum points out of their game, and they put themselves in the right spot. So full credit to them, and should make for some wonderful finals against Gympie. In that Division 2 final, I'll tell you what, if you've got half an hour spare on Sunday, get down to Grant Road, because that game against Caboolture and Burpengary is going to be plenty of feeling. Players stepping up left, right and centre. Going to be a really, really good clash. And to tell you what, the one against Caboolture and Gympie is not going to be a bad one either. Plenty of feeling in that one as well.
It was certainly quality cricket, and we haven't seen a lot of that this summer on the big scale. Swamp.
No, not at all. It's been a bit of a disappointing summer in terms of Australian colours, and plenty to be said, including the old Warren Manifesto. I think it got dubbed last night as well on how cricket should be run. But locally, it's in very, very good shape. So worth getting along and having a look.
Absolutely. Now, you had a quick birthday call, Swampy, for this morning.
Big shout out to Erica for her birthday today. Happy birthday. And Maddie's got a very special song lined up for you.
Yep, happy birthday, Erica. A bit of Bon Jovi for you. Bad Medicine. A big happy birthday to you. It's 25 minutes past 8. You're listening to SportsFeva with Matthew and Swampy. 27 minutes to 9 here on SportsFeva with Matthew and Swampy. And Swamp, wasn't 2012 absolutely an amazing year for Caboolture Rugby Union? A breaking year, and just everything fell into place. It was an anniversary year, and
you don't want to throw the term around or sporting fairy tale around too often, but that's what happened for the Snakes. It was an anniversary year, and of course it was a 1-point victory in the grand final against Noosa. So it was just absolutely wonderful. And here we'll find out if they come down from that high yet is Steve Payne from the club. Welcome to you, Steve.
Yeah, good morning, guys. How are you?
Not too bad here. Have you come down yet, Steve, or is everyone still celebrating a little bit following last year?
Mate, there's still a lot of big smiles out there, but yeah, we're hoping to back it up again this year, mate.
Now, of course, there's a few little changes throughout the club, including a new coach for the senior team. Tell us about that.
Yeah, Jason's come on board this year. Jason's got a wealth of experience. He was actually a junior Springbok and actually played in the Currie Cup for the Golden Lions and the Pumas. So a wealth of experience and a nice fresh face in the club, and yeah, everyone's very pleased to have him on board.
And in terms of some of those senior players from last year, how's it looking in terms of the list forming again, Steve?
We've kept the majority of the guys who played most of the year last year in A grade, so the core's still there, and we're building around that. But obviously, the momentum's rolling, and we've got some good new faces coming on board as well. So it's really exciting.
And I suppose a lot of that due to the reputation that Caboolture built last year. A wonderful year for that senior team. They did exceptionally well, and I suppose earned a fair bit of respect amongst some of those traditional Sunshine Coast powerhouses.
Well, I think this year the one thing that's obviously going to be clear is there's going to be no easy games this year. Everyone's going to be ready for the Snakes this year, so and that's exactly the way we want it. So it's good.
Now, of course, a big weekend coming up for plenty of winter codes, but a big one for the club with sign-ons for both seniors and juniors over the weekend.
Yeah, no, we've got sign-ons this Saturday and Sunday. The juniors will be signing on from 10 till 2 on Saturday and Sunday, and the seniors from 3 o'clock on the Sunday. So anybody from 5 to 85, if you want to come down to Kevin Kaiser over on Peterson Road, we'd love to see you down there.
And should be a big year, and a big increase in the juniors last year as well, Steve. Are you expecting a fair bit more young talent to come through the doors this year as well?
We certainly hope so, mate. We certainly want to fill a few holes in those junior ranks and carry on with the consistency and quality we already have in the junior coaches. So it's a matter of building, in all areas if we can. So yeah.
It's sure to be a big year again, Stephen. No doubt we'll get you on throughout the year to keep us updated on at Caboolture Rugby Union. We're very excited. We're still excited after last year's amazing year, and let's hopefully the Snakes can go back-to-back in 2013. Thanks for joining us on the line this morning.
Well, thank you very much for your time, guys, and as long as you're aware that it is actually the Chinese year of the snake, so it's maybe year of the snake parts.
Another fairy tale. We were looking for the fairy tale. You've just delivered it, Steve. We can't wait. Don't worry. We'll milk that for everything it's worth all year, mate.
Thanks, guys.
Good on you, Steve.
Cheers, Steve.
There you go. I was just searching for the fairy tale.
There you go.
There you go.
And no wonder that those guys are still on a high, Matty. It was, like you said, a drought-breaking year last year, and well-deserved. A lot of guys that have been toiling away for plenty of years that had the potential but just couldn't seem to unlock it and go that extra step for the Snakes really seemed to lift. And look, they delivered come grand final day, and it was a wonderful win. And hopefully, with, like Steve was saying, some of those core players back on board, like Captain Tom Aldridge, and of course that flying fullback in Jay Forrester, just about the fastest man on the coast in Union.
I'd say the fastest man in Caboolture sport.
Big call. There are some. I'm sure there's plenty of the other Caboolture Snakes that might want to have a quick word, but including Sean Hooper, a fair bit of
Super Hooper. Well, one day we will get this match race. I'll get this happening. All sport. If you think you're a fast runner in Caboolture sport, before the end of SportsFeva this year, we'll have a match race. I don't know where or when, but I will make it happen. I've talked it up for a few years, particularly from rugby league, but Moreton Bay sport in general.
I'm trying to think of any other candidates that might want to have a crack.
As long as you play if you might be a ping pong player in Bongaree, if you think you're quick and you want to be... Now, is it over 100 metres? Because there's different speeds from 40, the 40 dash to the 100.
Oh, I think 100 metres.
We've got to have the 100. Yep. I'd say it'll be at probably Apex Park.
I think there might be a few. 100 metres is allowed to enter? Because I think there's a fantastic little 100 metres runner called Ella Connolly that trains down at
that'll be interesting. That probably throws a spanner in the works, doesn't it?
Only 14, but my word, she can move over 100 metres. So
it might have to be like a stall gift. We might have to have starts, and this is getting. What have I got myself into here, Swamp?
You could run a market for it as well.
Oh, this is getting huge. Anyway, we'll put it there. It's only if you think you're fast, give us a call. Hit us up on Twitter. We'll remind you of our Twitter handles. I'm at Mr. Peninsula, and Swampy, you're at Swampy_88.
88.
Very good. So hit us up if you think you're fast. By the end of the year, we'll have some type of race somewhere.
Getting back to the Snakes, though, best of luck to them for the year. It's always a hard proposition to back up after the premiership. A lot of emotion coming through, and it's always the challenge for whether you're playing in a local competition or you're playing in the top of the international. It's really tough to back it up and continue that passion.
Particularly at this local level, I see, Swamp, at these sports, particularly when you've been trying for so long to and it's great that core players have returned, because often you'll see at this level the ultimate is winning a premiership, and players win this premiership and they've got work commitments and family commitments. They say, I've reached the ultimate, that's what I wanted to get out of this, I'm going to retire. So it's good to see that they've got the core there,
and a lot of them put a lot of that stuff on hold because they sense that it's an opportunity for them in that particular year. And we saw the Snakes in the league do it. A lot of those guys came back after the 08 disappointment, used that disappointment to fuel that run, and a lot of that core, hung up the boots for the next couple of years because, they'd achieved it and they put sort of other things in their life on hold that had to come to it. So it's always tough at that local level when these guys, have to manage both family and full-time work commitments around it. So, look, best of luck to it, and then hopefully they can get very close again. They're definitely the hunted now, though.
Yeah, no, it's very exciting times, though, for Caboolture Rugby Union. And just on Caboolture Rugby League, we'll touch base with them in a couple of weeks to see how they're heading, and also our other team, the War Eagles, see what they're up to in 2013.
Touch base with Chuck Tomlinson the other week, and the Snakes are back on board and training, so Chuck back on for another year.
And Chuck is back on. Before there was a question mark over if Chuck had come back.
He's back on for another year, and I think, especially we were on the sidelines for those two last games of the year, and it was a frustrated Glenn Tomlinson that was out there, not necessarily with the players, more so that they hadn't turned up and played to their potential that he knew that they all had. So I would think there's a little bit of unfinished business there for Chuck and those players, and there are some players coming in and out, and he's talked at length about bringing some new faces into the side. So we're going to see some of those reserve players who have been really dominant for so long, just missed out on the grand final last year after winning the last three. Some of them are going to get a run this year, so good to see some of those reserve guys who have stayed strong with the Snakes really going to get a chance to perform.
Yeah, no, I'm really glad that Chuck is back on board as well. So, like you said, we had called the game against Gympie thinking, yep,
They're on.
This is it. This is going to be our year. Quana always going to be tough, but got rolled by Quana, then got rolled by Gympie. It was just, it's not how it was meant to end.
No.
Yeah,
not at all. And they weren't those Snakes players that we saw against Gympie out there. For whatever reason, though, they just seemed to get themselves in a twist and couldn't get themselves out of it, couldn't break that funk that sort of set in midway through that Kawana game, and unfortunately that's how it ended for the Snakes.
Yeah, but a lot more Sunny Coast Rugby League action here on SportsFeva in the coming weeks as we preview the year. Quickly, just on the Dolphins, I know you've been talking to Troy Geese, who's trained the house down, was a star Dolphins player at the end of the year. And speaking of disappointing ends, there was no more disappointing end to a season in 2012 than the Dolphins losing the grand final.
Yeah, still shed it. Are we allowed to talk about it?
Not really. I don't think I'll ever get over it, Swamp, ever.
It was very tough, especially against Wynnum. But look, they're back into it. And I think, speaking of Troy Geese, he started his pre-season 8 days after the grand final, and I think that spoke volumes of just how disappointed those players were, knowing how they'd played through the year. They were unstoppable, and were playing some of the best footy that anywhere that you could watch, full stop, and that includes NRL, Super League, whatever you want. The Dolphins were the team to watch, and the team that I enjoyed watching the most through the year because of the brand of football that they were playing, but just didn't produce it on the day, got hit with plenty of injuries, and I suppose that's the worst thing. Is it happened to them the year before when they got knocked out by Wynnum, the week before the grand final. They knew that wasn't the team that they were, and that drove them all through the year, and then it sort of hit them again 1 week later. But look, he looks like an absolute beast this year, Troy Geese, and we're a good friend of the show, and he's absolutely raring to go. And one of my favourite things he said to me in our chat was that he's itching to hit someone that's not wearing the same colour as him. So a few teams might want to watch out in those trials, I think.
I tell you what, I hope he sticks with the headgear. That turned him into a superhuman.
It did, and of course remember that awful clash with the Ipswich player who hit the Ipswich player in the jaw, and poor old Jesse looked like he was down and out for the count. Plenty of the red stuff pouring from that wound on his head, and he was back the week after with however many stitches it was in his head and the headgear, and played right the way through. So he was absolutely fearless and in wonderful form at the end of last year.
Yep. No, looking forward to it. And of course, the huge in for the Dolphins, bigger than any in my time, probably going back to a different time, and when one Arthur Beetson come back for a swan song year back in '81 with the Dolphins, is Petro Simnasiva.
And I was out at Dolphins training yesterday afternoon, Matty, and the man was there and looking for no favours in training, in both fitness work and anything else. He was right there in the thick of it with everyone else, and you say you wouldn't really expect much of Petro, but you could see how a lot of guys might want to come back and perhaps take it a little bit easier after his incredible career. But he's not shy of any hard work, Petro, and he was working as hard as anyone there. And whispers that he might get a couple of minutes in the trial, depending on how fit he is. He is sort of building a few little niggles away in the pre-season, but whispers he could get a few minutes in the trial there against Wynnum, which would be fantastic and certainly delight the Dolphins home crowd.
No, I can't wait. I've seen him around the peninsula. He's looking very, very fit. So.
Looks not a day different to when we last saw him in Broncos.
I think he looks fitter. No, in all honesty, I think he looks slightly fitter than he did at the end of last year. I think just the year off, yeah, I'm excited, Swamp. Very, very excited. Time to play a quick song. We'll be back to talk some more cricket this time, with Stevie Gray. 13 minutes to 9 here on SportsFeva with Matthew and Swampy. Time now to talk to a real good friend of the show, Stevie Gray, from the Brisbane Heat and Queensland Cricket. Stevie, last time we spoke to you at the end of 2012, the Heat season was just kicking off. We had high hopes, and after a kind of it was looking a bit suspect there for a little while, but from kind of nowhere, we're the 2020 champions.
That's right. The high hopes were eventually realised, weren't they? It was a bit topsy-turvy, wasn't it? At one point, we were basically, a long way back on the field and not looking like we were going to be even making semi-finals. But it's funny to think about 2020 and certainly the BBL. I've noticed just in 2 years that it's just because you're on top one day doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be there the next day, does it?
No, not at all. And I remember walking away from, I think it was the Gabba, the game against the Sixers, I think it was, and we got rolled, and everyone leaving the ground that day thought that was the season. But a few results fell our way, and before we knew it, we were in a game to make the finals, and won the semi, and then won the final. It just quite an unbelievable sequence of events.
It was, fellas, and you know, the thing it was basically, it came on the road, so, but, you know, in some ways, the fans of the Heat, our home fans, didn't really see the best of them, I don't reckon. They certainly had a very good performance against the Melbourne Stars, which was very encouraging, but, yeah, you probably didn't get their best games were reserved for away from home, and as it turned out, their best games were reserved at the end of the season, where they basically strung together 3 instead of 7 days or 8 days. That turned out to be, you know, a must-win game to make the semi-final, and then the final. So if you've got to play your best away from your home crowds, and at the end of the season they did it impeccably, didn't they? And you know, one thing that was interesting was that Darren Lehman said in the lead-up to those last games, he said, you know, we're 3 man-of-the-match performances away from winning. Now, who's it going to be? You know, and as it turned out, Luke Palmer's back against the Hurricanes down in Hobart. Luke Palmer's back against the Renegades in Melbourne. And then sort of obviously there was the opportunity was there for somebody else. And as it turned out, probably the last game that scored us to the final was where I reckon, you know, there was a number of guys contributed and did very well. You know, Nathan Horrocks with his tight bowling, Kemar Roach with his wickets, you know, Dan Christian with his batting. It was very, and Joe Burns, of course, very, very encouraging, wasn't it?
Absolutely, Stephen. I suppose 2 performances that stood out for me were from players that had their troubles both on the field and off the field in Luke Pummersback and Nathan Horrocks. So probably a lot of people would have written off more than once, but under the very big arm of Buff Lehman, turned them into wonderful players and you know, probably secured those last couple of wins there for the Heat. Wonderful performances by both of those guys.
Yeah, and really interesting. Like Luke was pretty consistent, really, across the tournament. You know, he batted well down in Adelaide to get us to really set up or get us over the line, and that's the last 4 win down there against the Strikers before Christmas. And you know, it was interesting that he really was. He's a strong, he's a talented player. He's got a lot of class about him. Look, everyone's, I guess, reservations about Luke, but just how he was going to handle, you know, having to sort of, I guess, rebuild his life in some ways away from cricket. Cricket was almost an incidental part of it. And look, to his credit, he's done a very good job. He's really had a crack. You know, he's knuckled down, and he's been a very good addition. And look, Nathan Horrocks is a great case of a guy that, you know, is concerned he can do everything. Like, he's played Test cricket, he's won international cricket, very experienced player. In the BBL for a while there, you know, a couple of times he joked to me. He said, "Look, I'm having a great trip there, being one of being a specialist fielder, you know, and because he wasn't getting a bat, and he didn't get a bowl in a couple of games, or bowl 1 over or something." So, as it turned out, though, that fielding was really, really important. You know, I had a mate of mine say, "Gee, you both did pretty well for carrying, you know, a couple of specialist fielders." You know, and he was talking about Nathan Horrocks and Chris Sandberg. But you know what? It really made a very, I guess, it made a key. I guess it was a key factor to how the team went, because taking catches, apart from the game in Melbourne where we didn't take catches but started up runs, taking catches and fielding well is an area where I think the Heat were probably ahead of most of the other sides.
And it was right down to, I think, under 10 cricket, that old mantra that catches win matches, Steve. Now, Darren Lehman, such a massive impact on both this Brisbane and Queensland side since he's come on board. He just seems like he's got everyone thinking on the same page and really bringing the best out of players that perhaps have a bit of potential but haven't quite managed to get there. Tell us how Buff operates behind the scenes, Steve. Is he a pretty no-nonsense operator?
He's no-nonsense, and you know, he's got a few ground rules. And, you know, he expects people to be on time. He expects them to have to be respectful and have good manners, which I think probably some people would think might be a bit incongruous, but he's pretty strong on guys doing the right thing. But he certainly gives the players a lot of love. He really, you know, he celebrates their successes. He loves seeing them go well. You know, he's very much like, I guess, the person who sort of sits back sometimes and just revels in the fact of seeing guys enjoy themselves. You know, a bit like a benevolent uncle or something sometimes. But but one thing about him I would say is he's got great cricket knowledge and can do it very simply. Like the game plans they put together for a lot of these runs, he did an awful lot of thinking. He and the support staff, they did a lot of plans and stuff. But when it came down to the players, they were pretty simple. You know, they gave them options. They talked about what they think would work well. A few times I heard you could hear him say things like, I reckon they're going to do this. This is how he's going to go, and this will probably happen. And it was almost spot on. It was like, he was inside the opposition player's head, because that's what happened. And it was really interesting watching how they sort of got those plans in place. So that's one thing about him. Very smart, but able to communicate on cricket terms really well with guys and give them some simple messages. He makes a very welcoming atmosphere, of course, and it's no secret the guys like Usman Khawaja or Peter Forrest who have come into the squad from outside are very settled and very comfortable and quite happy with how they're going. So, that's to his credit. He's enjoying their success. I know he's sort of turned very quickly from the heat to the Bulls once the celebrations had died down, because he really wants that team, that group of players that he had together all year to go well. So he's very keen to see the Bulls sort of finish the year strongly in the Shield and the one day. We got washed out last week, but there's the one day on Saturday, the Ryobi Cup at the Gabba. So I know he's been spending a lot of time thinking about that. He really wants, I know, to give the boys every chance of doing exceptionally well in these competitions.
Take us through what we got left in the Bulls season now. Like you said, we lost that one day the other day, but what do we got left in the Shield and one day seasons now?
Effectively, we've got two. We've got one more home Ryobi Cup game and then an away one. So we've still got some 2 games there. We've got the challenge we've got now is the Shield game. We've got basically two homes and 2 away. And they're interesting games. We're on top of the Shield at the moment, but obviously got Victoria right on us at the same points. And South Australia, surprised back up, stringing some wins together after being on the bottom for so long, doing well too. So we've seen how teams can come home strongly in the second half of the season. So we're going to play well. Western Australia next week, near a different kettle of fish under Justin Langer. So we'll need to do that and perform at our best at the Gabba next week. And our other game of the Gabba is against the Tigers. So we've got some cricket to play. We've certainly got some jobs to do out there. But I think the one thing about the team is we're probably not going to have too many players off to Australia. I think Usman Khawaja probably is the only one we're going to lose at this stage to India. You've got the prospect of Brian Harris being back. I would have thought very soon, and with any luck, certainly being there for those last month of the year, that last month, which will be pretty crucial. And of course, a lot of depth in the squad. Lots of depth. The second 11's away at the moment. I know there's at least 2 or 3 blokes there that are pushing that probably in previous seasons might have got a start by now. So that's the go for Queensland. Hitting the blokes in they've got, but getting their best combination on the field.
Now, one of the big performers of the BBL for the Sydney Sixers of all things was Lloyd Feldman, their leading wicket taker there, Steve. I understand he's under a little bit of an injury cloud at the moment.
He's been just battling a bit with a bit of a groin injury, but it was cleared to play last week, so a bit like James Hopes. At this stage, work on the fact that he's going to be better off. The week off will probably have helped him even more so than most. So he's did a great job there with the Sixers. It was with the Hurricanes last year in the BBL and didn't get a game, and probably suffered from maybe a month off. He came back and probably battled in the second half of the season, but was in really good shape going down to the Sixers. Bowled very well for them, and probably surprised himself in some ways how well he sort of went with that bowling with as big as the death and stuff with the ball. So I think he's a bit of a bonus for us, certainly in the Ryobi Cup. I hope he can translate that, because he's a very, very competitive cricketer, Luke, and certainly has a lot to offer. And in the back of my mind, I've got Cameron Boyce in there too, while we're talking locally based players. Cam sort of in the game in Melbourne against the Bushrangers, which will be very important. And I think Cam's leg spinners will be something we'll need well and truly at the MCG, because I think he's going to be a key player to give us just that little that point of difference, or that edge, I suppose you say, against a team like the Bushrangers.
Yeah, absolutely. Big fans of Cam here on the show, and Lukey Feldman as well, and of course yourself, Stevie Gray. Big fans, and we appreciate your time this morning, and really appreciate it. We know you're busy, but thanks for the rundown, and no doubt we'll talk to you before the end of the Bulls season.
Many thanks. Let's hope all the listeners have sort of emerged from this last little period of wet weather and wild weather with not too much damage and like. So I know there's plenty of thoughts going around the state. The players' books he's quite concerned about how Queensland's faring. I know he's encouraging the players to do what they can where they can. So let's hope we can bring home some trophies as well to make people happy.
Yep, that's the best medicine for it. Thanks very much, Dave.
Thanks, boys.
Cheers, mate. Stevie Gray from the Brisbane Heat and Queensland Cricket set up there, and yeah, like you said, the best medicine for run will be a couple more victories for the Bulls.
And in a very good spot to, of course, turn back to the domestic competition, and great to see those local players become really key links for the Bulls in both the one-days and the longer forms, and really looking forward to seeing how Cameron Boyce goes in Melbourne there. He's had a really, really solid season this year. Not quite a breakout one that will throw his name into, selectors' considerations yet, but, he just needs to keep going. Leg spinners, short of prodigies, develop a lot later. So
absolutely,
these kind of seasons now are really promising for him. So hopefully he can keep it going.
In a way, I think it's good that he hasn't kind of sprung onto the scene. We've seen obviously Nathan Horrocks is an offie and a little bit different, but we've seen Horrocks and a few of these other spinners just thrown to the line, so to speak, doing nothing for the development. I think it's good for Boise just to be working through these Shield games, playing on pitches that suit him. It'll do far much more for his development than being thrown onto some of these real tough pitches against quality opposition so early in his career.
Yeah, couldn't agree more there, matey. Important for him to get that really good development through the Shield competition.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Swampy, where's this hour gone?
It's gone very quickly, hasn't it?
We've waited 6 weeks for it, and it's gone all of a sudden. Jeez, it's been action-packed, no doubt about it. But thank you very much to all our guests this morning. We've had
Jason Boris from Cricket,
yep.
Steve Payne from the Bulltrot Union, and of course Stevie Gray from Queensland Cricket.
Yep, and of course, remember, if you think you're a fast runner, contact us in the next couple of weeks. I'm going to get this match race going.
What about Mooney? Would he get a Guernsey?
He'd be off. He'd be off 10 metres. He'd be off 10 metres, Mooney. We'll get Mooney on the phone in the next couple of weeks and give us a rundown on the War Eagles as well. That's us done and dusted for today. Stand by now for the national news and then Morning Magazine for all your news, views and interviews.